In this video, we're going to look at factoring by grouping. So far, we've used factoring to do difference of squares of a binomial. We've used factoring for trinomials, and now we're going to use factoring of polynomials when there is at least 4 terms. Factoring by grouping can be done in a few short steps. First of all, you have to make sure it's in standard form. Standard form is a little bit different with 4 terms, but you still want to do the same way we did with trinomials. We want to start with the highest exponent and work our way down to the constant. If it is not in standard form first, that is the first thing you have to do, is put it in standard form. Then what you're going to do is you're going to group the first 2 terms together and the last 2 terms together. Make sure you include any signs that are with them, because we're going to be factoring out positives and negatives. Factor out a GCF out of both groups that you created in step 2, and that should create a set of repeating factors. Now we're going to cancel out one of the repeating factors, and then we'll just combine what's left for our answer. Alright, example 1 here, we have 8r cubed minus 64r squared plus r minus 8. So the first thing I check for is it in standard form. In this case it is, because the cubed is first, then squared, then r, and then the constant is at the end. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to take and I'm going to group the first 2 terms together and the last 2 terms together. Once I have my groups, I'll factor out a greatest common factor. The greatest common factor of the first group is going to be 8r squared. Now once I factor that out of the first group, I'm left with r minus 8. In the second group, there's not a greatest common factor, but we know there's a 1. So we can say that the greatest common factor is 1, which would not change anything inside the parentheses. So here we have a set of repeating factors, r minus 8 and r minus 8. So I'm going to take the first 2 and combine those together. 8r squared plus 1. Cancel out one of the r minus 8s, and then take the other and combine it with the first to have my 2 factors. So you take whatever's outside the parentheses, which in this case is 8r squared and a positive 1. We're going to combine it together, cancel out a repeating factor, and then write it as the other factor. Alright, in this example we are in standard form, so we can group our terms. The greatest common factor of the first group is going to be 3p squared. When I factor that out, I'm going to be left with 4p minus 7. In the second group, it's going to be a positive 7. If that was a negative sign in front of the 28, it would be negative 7. But since it's positive, we'll factor out a positive 7. And when I factor that out, I get a repeating factor of 4p minus 7. That is what we want. That's what we're looking for. When you factor out greatest common factors, you want to try to get 2 repeating factors so we can cancel one out. Take what is outside the parentheses, so that's 3p squared. We factor out a positive 7, so we're going 3p plus 7. We'll cancel out one of the repeating factors, and we'll just bring the remaining one down. And that's it. In this example, the polynomial is not in standard form, so I have to rewrite it in standard form. So I'm going to start with the coefficient and highest exponent, which is 6v cubed. I will go to the square term, and I'm going to make sure I include the negative in front of it. Can't change the signs, I have to keep it the same, so I'm going to make sure that's going to be negative 16v squared. Plus 21v minus 56. Now it's in standard form, now I can get my groups. Greatest common factor out of the first, 2v squared. That leaves me with 3v minus 8. Going to factor out a positive 7 of the second group, and that'll leave me with 3v minus 8. I'm going to take whatever is outside the parentheses, so that's a 2v and a 7. I'm going to cancel out one of the repeating factors and bring down the other. Take a moment to pause the video and try these on your own. Helpful hint on number 2 and 3 especially. You're going to have to factor out a negative of the second group. And when you factor out a negative of the second group, it's going to change the signs. A hint for number 4 is you need to make sure that you're going to put it in standard form first.